feel like they don't have the power to be shaping the decisions that are affecting their lives, we need to be questioning our assumptions. So what if elections were not at the heart of democracy? What if we shifted political and legislative power to everyday people? And what if we revived the practice of selecting our parliaments by lot instead of by elections? I invite you to imagine what this might look like with me. So imagine that today is in fact September 29th, 2032. And this morning, when you checked your mailbox, you found an invitation to be serving on your country's executive assembly. This invitation explains that if you put your hat in the ring, you have a chance of being selected in the second lottery to really be a member of this assembly. And that second lottery is what ensures that this group of people will be broadly representative of the diversity of society. Yes, last year, your partner was serving on the Education Policy Assembly. It was super interesting to hear about their experience, a little skeptical at first about how we would possibly reach some form of consensus on lots of really controversial issues, but after so many deep-felt discussions, it really was possible to find common ground on issues ranging from school meals to exams. Your best friend was also on the latest Judiciary Selection Commission, a system that was put in place to take the partisanship out of selecting judges. And a few years ago, your daughter, when she was 16, she served on the Legislative Assembly, and it was a transformative experience for her life. Members of all of these different assemblies are selected by sortition, meaning by lottery. This means that also people have access to just like jury duty, paid time off work, that childcare, transportation, other costs are covered. You're of course paid a salary for your time, the way that elected officials were paid. And this ritual of sortition has become something that is defining democracy today. Instead of parties and professional politicians, it's everyday people like me, like you, like your mum, your dad, your brothers, sisters, your friends, your colleagues. We are the ones who are in charge, taking turns representing others and being represented. And this whole system goes well beyond actually voting and politics now that you start to think about it. Actually, it's been kind of reverberating in other aspects and other spheres of your life as well. New legislation last year means that the company that you work at, your boss has instituted a new system of governance where part of the board is now selected by lot from employees. Your son's school board is now governed by rotating selected teachers. And actually, your son was also selected to be on his student council by lottery last year, too. He was super nervous. He never would have run in what was the popularity contest of elections, but actually he was really glad that he did it. It completely changed his sense of confidence, leadership, but also a sense of really being able to listen to other people. And your social circle has really changed as well. Beyond the people that you've met through work and school and other things, through these assemblies, you've encountered people who are CEOs and bakers and cleaners and writers and philosophers, people from all walks of life. Two of the former assembly members are now some of your best friends. So as you think about all of this and you're looking at this really important letter inviting you to put your name up for being part of the Executive Assembly, you say, yes, I am going to put my name forward, and fingers crossed I might get selected this time. I really believe that such a vision of a future democratic future could really be possible. Perhaps achieving it within the next 10 years is a little ambitious. But at the same time, is it really that radical to imagine a future where everyone has equal political power? Is it that radical to suggest that we could have democratic institutions that recognize that every single one of us has agency and dignity, that we can channel our collective wisdom, and that we have institutions that actually create the conditions for us to enable finding common ground? I don't think I'm your classic radical revolutionary. Before founding DemocracyNext, I established and led the OECD's work on the future of democracy and innovative citizen participation. with Yeva Chesnula-Chite, who was my former colleague and has now left the OECD to found DemocracyNext with me. When we were at the OECD, we developed an extensive database looking at around 600 examples of citizens' assemblies around the world at all levels of governance, dealing with all sorts of different political, tricky, hard political questions. Assemblies where people selected by lottery came together to work over many months and come up with policy propositions for their governments, showing us that everyday people are more than capable of grappling with complexity, of coming together across diversity, and of finding common ground with one another to decide together. These examples are part of what has given me hope that another democratic future really is possible. Examples like the French Citizens' Convention on Climate, where there were 150 people who were randomly selected to be broadly representative of French society. Over the course of 9 months, they deliberated and they developed a set of 149 recommendations for regulation, for legislation, of how France could reduce its greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030 in the spirit of social justice. In Ireland, at the national level, it's been 10 years now that it has become common practice that citizens' assemblies are part of the way that democracy works. They've dealt with, most recently, issues to do with gender equality, biodiversity loss, devolution, but perhaps some of the most well-known and compelling examples are around the controversial constitutional issues around same-sex marriage and abortion, where 100 people from Ireland, after deliberating together for many months, recommended to the government that there should be a referendum to change the constitution on both issues. And they also developed the proposals for, if people vote for change, these are the ways in which the legislation could and should change as well. People did vote for change in those referendums that the government did initiate. But there are also examples, as Achilles was saying in his opening, of permanent citizens' assemblies now as well. Back in 2018, I had the privilege of being convened as part of a group of experts, and there's a few other people here in this room as well, that were brought together by the G1000 and David van Reybrouck, who is a Belgian author and writer on democracy and other things. And he had been asked by the President of the Parliament and the President of the Government of Ostbelgien, which is the German-speaking community of Belgium, to develop a set of proposals for a permanent citizens' assembly for this region that could complement and work alongside the Parliament. So we worked out a proposal that we put forward to the parliamentarians. There was a bit of back and forth. I won't go into the details of the process of it, but the proposal was to establish what is essentially a second chamber of people selected by lottery. And the parliamentarians in Ostbelgien voted unanimously and across party lines to set up the legal mechanism to make this possible, and it's been operating since 2019. Okay, fair enough, Ostbelgien is small, it's 80,000 people, the perfect laboratory perhaps for such an experiment. But it inspired the vice mayor of Paris for participation. Paris, the capital of one of the biggest economies of the world. And so I once again had the privilege of being convened with another group of experts, this time by the Federation for Innovation in Democracy Europe, which I'm also part of. And we worked together to come up with a proposal of how could we adapt some of the principles of an Ostbelgian model to Paris, to its institutional context. And we actually suggested giving it even further powers. The City Council has voted to implement this, and there is a legal basis for it as well, and it's been in place since the first assembly was convened in December 2021. So we have some of the foundations, actually, of another democratic future being possible that have already been laid. And it's these examples that really give me hope that in this context of disillusionment, of people feeling legitimately that they don't necessarily have a voice, nor really the power to be shaping decisions that affect them, that we could be doing things differently, that we could be establishing and shifting power to new institutions that are based on these democratic principles of citizen participation, representation by lot, and deliberation. Because I don't think we should be giving in to fatalism either. That's the danger zone. And we're not limited to two options. It's not that we either try to find the next saviors of broken electoral politics, or we're tempted by the siren calls of autocracy that tempt us with easy solutions to our complex problems. There is another way, and we see that there's already been a number of political leaders who have been the agents of this change. I really don't want what I'm saying to come across as some sort of bashing of politicians, because I genuinely think that people who go into politics and who run for office are amazing people, and they have good intentions, and they want to change the world and change the communities they're part of. And we see that we need their leadership to be really reinvigorating and reinventing our democratic institutions to be more democratic than what we have today. I believe that another democratic future really is possible, that we can be shifting political and legislative power to everyday people, that we can establish new institutions that genuinely embody equal political rights, where we take turns representing each other and being represented. That we can be moving to a system where parliaments are selected by lot rather than by elections. Together with a group of democracy practitioners, public servants, writers, philosophers, activists, and actually quite simply as citizens, we have been working to establish DemocracyNext, which we launched recently, with this mission and this belief, actually, that this other democratic future is possible. But we're not going to be able to achieve this mission on our own. It's really by working with you in this room and many, many other people, and there were actually over 100 people involved in setting up DemocracyNext in one way or another as well. It's really by working together that we can be working towards a mission of shifting power to people and building new institutions for the next democratic paradigm. So I invite you to join us on this mission, and together we can make another democratic future a reality. Thank you.